Yeah, it's Zach, stepping up to the game, living life prepared, I'm not here for the fame. With a plan in my hand, gotta make it alright. Through the storms and the struggles, I'm ready to fight. Prepare for the worst while I aim for the best. Zach's unique prepping, we're reaching new heights. Living strong and ready, we're chasing the lights. With courage as armor, we'll conquer the day. Together we rise, we'll fight our own way. Stacking knowledge and skills, I'm building my base. In this world of chaos, I'm finding my space. No fear in the hustle, I'm sharpening my tools. When the world brings the waves, I'm breaking the rules. Stand tall, keep grinding, never lose sight. Yeah, Zach's unique prepping, we're reaching new heights. Living strong and ready, we're chasing the lights. With courage as armor, we'll conquer the day. Together we rise, we'll find our own way. We'll find our own way. Stand tall, keep grinding, never lose sight. Stacking knowledge and skills, I'm building my base. In this world of chaos, I'm finding my space. No fear in the hustle, I'm sharpening my tools. When the world brings the waves, I'm breaking the rules. Stand tall, keep grinding, never lose sight. Never lose sight. Yeah, stand tall, keep grinding, never lose sight. Let's break every chain, with Zach in the lead. We'll never feel pain, never feel pain, never feel pain. With Zach in the lead, we'll never feel pain, never feel pain, never feel pain. With Zach in the lead, we'll never feel pain. With Zach in the lead, we'll never feel pain. With Zach in the lead, we'll never feel pain. We'll never feel pain, we'll never feel pain. We'll never feel pain.
When I was born, they had no hope for me, but I survived to build a legacy. I felt no love as I was raised. I felt broken, disheartened, and betrayed. But here I am, doing my own thing. I'll take a stand, I'll take a stand. I can do anything. You take one look at me and see a man with a disability. You don't know what I can be. You just take me for granted. So here I go, here I go. I'm gonna prove you wrong. Don't tell me no, don't tell me no. I'll show you I am strong. You think that I am disabled? I'm gonna show you I'm very capable. I was made fun of when I was in school. It broke my heart. I wasn't cool, I wanted to give up, wanted to end my life. I couldn't take the pain, couldn't take the strife. But here I am, living the dream. I got some friends, and they're on my team. You take one look at me and see a man with a disability. You don't know what I can be. You just take me. So here I go, here I go. I'm gonna prove you wrong. Don't tell me no, don't tell me no. I'll show you I am strong. You think that I am disabled? I'm gonna show you I'm very capable. I'm a survivor and that's a fact. It was a long road, but I'm not looking back. I am a winner and I choose to succeed. I'm stronger. My past made me be. I'm Zach and I'm just being me. I'm not disabled, I've got a unique ability.
At Unique Prepping, we're all about building stronger communities and preparing for the unexpected. Now, we're taking our mission even further by partnering with Stolen Spirits, a powerful initiative focused on raising awareness for missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. Together, we're blending preparedness with advocacy, shining a light on the issues that matter most. Join us as we unite for a cause, inspire change, and build a future where every voice is heard and every life is valued. Unique Prepping and Stolen Spirits, stronger together.
Hey, Zach. What's up, buddy? How have you been?
Hello, our prepping community, and welcome to the 42nd installment of Unique Prepping's community. On tonight's episode, we will be discussing the transitioning from living a normal life to getting into the prepping lifestyle. I'm your host, producer, and community member Unique Prepping, and with me is my brothers and our community member Tag from Life Done Free. Down in the description, I put his YouTube channels. Please go subscribe and keep this beautiful community growing. Prepping matters because everyday life is fragile in ways most people never stop to think about. Power grids fail, supply chains break, storms wipe out entire towns, and systems people depend on can disappear overnight. Preparedness is about recognizing those realities without fear and choosing to take responsibility for yourself and your people before pressure hits. The goal is not to live in constant worry. The goal is to live with awareness and calm readiness. Normal life conditions people to outsource survival skills. Food comes from stores, water comes from taps, heat comes from switches, safety comes from systems that feel permanent. Prepping lifestyle challenges that illusion by rebuilding personal capability. Learning where food comes from, how to store it, how to purify water, how to stay warm, how to stay healthy, how to protect your household creates real independence. That independence builds confidence that no purchase or service can replace. Transitioning into prepping is not about becoming extreme or isolating yourself from society. It is about becoming grounded in reality while still living a full, connected life. Preparedness strengthens families, friendships, and communities when done with the right mindset. Skills shared are resources multiplied. Plans discussed become stability when pressure shows up. Strong communities survive where individuals struggle alone. Many people feel overwhelmed by prepping because they think it requires huge money, space, or lifestyle changes. The truth is that preparedness grows through small consistent steps. A little food stored. A little water set aside. A simple plan discussed. A basic skill practiced. Small action builds momentum. Each habit compounds into real security over time. Mindset is the foundation of the prepping lifestyle. Fear-driven prepping leads to burnout and isolation. Calm, intentional prepping builds resilience and clarity. Preparedness works best when it fits into your real life instead of replacing it. People with jobs, families, responsibilities, and limited time can still build meaningful readiness through smart systems and simple routines. Preparedness is also about mental resilience. Stress destroys decision-making. Panic leads to bad choices. Training your mind to stay calm during uncertainty may be the most important prep of all. Prepared people do not magically avoid chaos. They respond to it with better judgment because they have already considered what matters and what does not. Preparedness teaches personal accountability. It shifts the mindset from expecting rescue to becoming capable of response. That does not mean rejecting help or community support. It means showing up as someone who can contribute instead of only consume. Communities built from capable individuals are harder to break when systems fail. Preparedness protects dignity. Being able to provide food, warmth, water, and stability during hard times preserves personal pride and emotional strength. Dependence without preparation creates vulnerability that harms families long after the crisis ends. Preparedness gives people the ability to help others without sacrificing their own survival. Preparedness is also about legacy. Skills passed to children create strength across generations. Teaching basic survival skills, financial responsibility, gardening, food storage, and situational awareness prepares the next generation for a world that will not always be predictable. Children raised with resilience carry confidence into every part of their lives. Community is one of the strongest preps anyone can build. People with trusted relationships recover faster from hardship. Sharing resources, knowledge, and emotional support strengthens everyone involved. This community exists to build that strength together, not just to talk about gear and supplies, but to build people who can adapt and endure. Tonight I am also running a fundraiser to renew my talking software so I can continue creating content and engaging with this community. Last night we needed $350, and now it is down to $135. My donation links are in the description if anyone wants to donate. We have until the 24th to raise the money, and any support is deeply appreciated. This conversation matters because preparedness is not a trend, it is a lifestyle of responsibility, resilience, and care for yourself and others. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share. Tag, do you have anything else to add before we start?
Well, I mean, first, thank you for welcoming me back to the Warrior Podcast, right? You're a superhero. You're never ceases to amaze me how intelligent you are, my friend. And your words are good and they run deep. And no, just again, thanks for having me on. And hey, about your fundraiser, if you come on my live Friday at 7, I'll help you, and we'll get to whatever money's left. We'll get it raised that night. Okay. Rock on. I'm ready. Let's roll.
Question number 1. What core belief or fear about the future finally pushed you to move beyond normal life and start actively prepping? And how has that belief evolved since you began the transition?
Oh my goodness. That's like a loaded question. There's so much in here. So what core belief? So I was a soldier and I served overseas, and that was really kind of the time I really began to wake up, because I started to realize that maybe this wasn't what I thought it was, or, maybe we weren't fighting for the exact reasons that I thought that we were fighting for. So as to your question, the part about beyond normal, I don't know what normal is, because I'm a Gen X, so we're the feral generation. So I've always been a little bit of a rebel. But that belief has kind of evolved by death of 1,000 cuts. It's one sign after another sign after another sign. The movie Bruce Almighty, when he's driving down the road and he's rubbing his prayer beads and he's going, God, give me a sign, give me a sign. And he drives by that truck full of signs. Well, that's kind of been my life. That truck, kind of full of signs, full of signs. But again, the evolved part was just waking up and realizing that I had to take accountability for me and for my family and for my friends and for my loved ones. And I had to own their safety, their security, their well-being. And I couldn't wait for someone to come and fix it for me. And I couldn't depend, on that. And so basically, to summarize all of that, I had to come up to this point where I was no longer going to outsource my success. I'm not going to outsource my decisions, and I had to just do it for myself, which ultimately led to the way we live today, completely off grid and growing our own food and doing our own thing. But yeah, so to answer your question, Zach, for me, it was a long death of 1,000 cuts.
Core belief that finally pushed me beyond normal life came from watching how easily people are turned against each other. Politics stopped being about problem solving and turned into a constant machine of division, outrage, and fear. Every headline felt designed to keep people angry, suspicious, and distracted. That kind of environment does not build stable communities. It weakens them. Seeing how quickly neighbors could be made to see each other as enemies made me realize that depending fully on systems shaped by that kind of division was risky. The future I started to fear was not just about shortages or disasters. It was about social breakdown. It was about a world where people are trained to argue instead of cooperate, to label instead of listen, to attack instead of build.
Yeah.
When trust erodes, everything else becomes fragile. Food systems, emergency response, community support all depend on people being willing to work together. A divided population is easy to destabilize, and that realization hit harder than any supply chain issue ever could. Yeah. In 2022, I planted my first potato garden as a quiet form of resistance to that environment. It was not about becoming self-sufficient overnight.
Mhm.
It was about reclaiming something simple and honest. Growing food with my own hands reminded me that real life happens outside of screens, arguments, and manufactured outrage. Watching something grow under my care grounded me in reality in a way that no political debate ever could. It showed me that building is more powerful than reacting.
Mhm.
Small garden became a turning point in how I saw responsibility. Depending entirely on systems shaped by conflict felt like giving away too much control over my own well-being. Growing even a little food shifted my mindset from passive consumption to active participation in my own survival. It made preparedness feel less like fear and more like empowerment. It showed me that resilience starts with simple choices repeated consistently. Life opened my eyes to a world filled with anger, fear, and behaviors I do not want to become part of. The constant pressure to pick sides, to hate the other, to assume the worst about people corrodes the soul over time. That atmosphere does not just damage society. It damages individuals. Living in that emotional environment felt unhealthy, and prepping became a way to step out of that mental trap and into something constructive. Preparedness became a way to choose peace in the middle of noise. Learning to store food, plan for disruptions, and build skills created a sense of calm that political chaos never offered. It reduced the feeling of being emotionally hostage to news cycles and online arguments. When you are actively building stability in your own life, fear loses much of its power over you. The belief that once came from fear of collapse evolved into a belief in building alternatives. It stopped being about expecting the worst and started being about creating better conditions within my own reach. Growing food, learning skills, and building community became acts of hope instead of reactions to fear. Preparedness turned into a way to invest in life rather than brace against it. The more I prepared, the more I saw how artificial many divisions really are. People from different backgrounds all worry about feeding their families, keeping their loved ones safe, and having some stability in uncertain times. Those shared concerns cut across political labels. Prepping spaces brought together people who might disagree on opinions but still cooperate on solutions. That cooperation revealed how much common ground exists when survival and responsibility become the focus. Unique prepping exists to break division and stereotypes because the prepping world itself has been boxed into extremes by culture and media. Preparedness gets painted as paranoia, isolation, or hostility toward others. The reality is that healthy prepping is about care, foresight, and community resilience. It is about people choosing to become more capable so they can be less afraid and more helpful when things go wrong. Breaking stereotypes matters because fear thrives on caricatures. When people believe preppers are only angry, extreme, or disconnected from reality, they dismiss the value of preparedness altogether. Showing a grounded, calm, community-focused approach to prepping opens the door for more people to take responsibility for their lives without feeling like they are joining a fringe identity. The evolution of belief changed my relationship with the future. The future no longer feels like something happening to me. It feels like something I can influence through my daily choices. Growing food, building skills, strengthening community, and rejecting manufactured division gives me agency in a world that often tries to take it away. Preparedness now represents alignment with values I want to live by. Responsibility over reaction. Building over arguing. Cooperation over division. Awareness over fear. Unique prepping stands for choosing unity in a culture that profits from separation, and choosing resilience in a world that often rewards complacency. Out.
Hmm. Yeah, there's a lot there, Zach. A lot of really smart stuff you said in there. I think the whole thing about building a community is the ultimate prep. Ultimate. It's beyond everything else because as you go through the evolution of prepping from someone who started in prepping in 1993 to the natural progression it takes you through, pretty quick you realize you can't store enough, you can't do enough, there's not enough hours in the day, there's not all of these things, and so community becomes more and more valuable. I also loved what you talked about as far as people think preppers are angry. People who know me in my personal life, I'm always playing jokes and pranks and laughing and having a good time, always, constantly. But I'm super aware of what's going on around me, and so I'm not angry at all either. And so I'm glad that you brought that to the surface. And then the final point I would make on what you said: every single person in this world is a prepper. They don't know it because they pay. Why do the people have life insurance? They're preparing for their death. Why do people have car insurance? Because they're preparing for an accident. Why do they have a 401k plan or whatever? It's because they're preparing for something. They just want to prepare for all the good stuff. I guess death isn't good, but and not really prepare for the other side. So I think we're all preppers. We're all in a different place in our journey, and if we celebrate where everyone is in their journey, we can help everybody through their journey. I think what you said was really well said, Zach.
Question number 2, in transitioning to a prepping lifestyle, what part of your old, normal life do you miss the most? Convenience, social norms, trust in systems, etc.
Oh my goodness, there's a lot here. I think there's a couple short points, and then maybe I'll get into a little bit of longer explanation. Is there was something nice before I was awake about just living in that bliss. Everything was fine. It was work itself out. It didn't affect me. I didn't have to worry about it. But as you get older and you get wiser, you have kids, you have families, you have these kinds of things pretty quick. You have lots to protect. And so that illusion rubs off quickly. I think a big one for me too was there was a time in my life when I believed my kids were going to have a better life than me. I have a better life than my parents did, and they had a better life than their parents did, and they had a better life than their parents did. And that's kind of the American way. And for the first time in our nation's history, that's no longer going to be the case. And so I used to believe that if my kids just went and worked hard, that they could create themselves an existence, that was better than what their father had shown them. And, but that's just simply not the case. The other part to that, I think that whole story is for anybody who knows my story, I lost my career over COVID. And because I refused to mandate the vaccine to my employees, and had a really great career, made lots of money. And it was nice to travel wherever I wanted to travel and do whatever we wanted to go do. And, some of those things were exciting but it was all just this illusion and this mirage. So I don't really regret any of it. I mean, I'm glad I'm awake now. I'm glad that I see it now. I'm glad that I can be ahead of it now. And, Zach knows this about us. We have a big, community out here where I live, and, we get to practice all of those things like food security and water security and energy security. And, we get to actually put everything into works. So I don't know what a normal life is, Zach, when you say that, because, for me, I've never really had one. I'm a Gen X, and I come up a little bit rough, and then I was a soldier, and, then I was on my own. And so I don't really know what normal is, but I do sometimes kind of miss the bliss, I think is the way I would answer that, because it ain't there more. So
I miss most from my old, normal life is trust. That
mm,
systems would work when they were supposed to. Trust that shelves would be stocked. Trust that help would show up quickly when something went wrong. Trust that most people were operating with good intentions. That trust created a kind of mental rest that is hard to replace once it fades. Living without it requires more awareness, more planning, and more emotional energy. Trust in systems allowed life to feel lighter. Hours felt permanent. Utilities felt guaranteed. Services felt reliable. That sense of stability created comfort, even when it was built on assumptions rather than reality.
right.
Losing that trust changes how you move through the world. You start to notice weak points in everyday routines.
Mhm.
You start to see how much of normal life is held together by agreements people rarely think about. I'm not fully into the prepping lifestyle yet, but I am working toward it. That in-between space is uncomfortable at times.
Mhm.
It means seeing vulnerabilities without having fully built solutions yet. It means carrying awareness without always having the resources to act on it. That gap between understanding and capability can feel heavy, because you no longer get to relax into ignorance, but you also do not yet feel fully prepared. Convenience was easier when trust was intact. It was easier to assume that food would always be available, that power would always be on, that services would always function smoothly. Letting go of that assumption adds friction to daily life. Planning ahead takes time. Storing supplies takes space. Learning skills takes effort. The comfort of effortless convenience is something I still feel the absence of. Social norms also felt simpler when trust was higher. Conversations felt lighter when politics and fear were not woven into everything.
Yes.
People could disagree without seeing each other as threats. That social ease made daily interactions less tense. Losing that ease creates emotional distance in everyday life, and that distance can be lonely even when you are surrounded by people. Trust in systems created a sense of safety that was emotional as much as practical. Knowing that emergency services, infrastructure, and institutions would function provided psychological comfort. Questioning that reliability changes how you experience uncertainty. You start thinking about backup plans. You start considering what happens if support does not arrive in time. That awareness can feel sobering, even when it is realistic. Preparedness introduces responsibility that normal life did not require. Being aware of risks means accepting that you are partly responsible for how well you handle them. That responsibility can feel heavy when you are still building capacity. It changes how you see yourself in relation to your environment. You are no longer just living inside systems. You are learning to live alongside them with your own safeguards. Trust allowed spontaneity to flourish. Last-minute plans felt safe because resources felt abundant. Out for something at the last second felt harmless. Losing that sense of abundance changes how spontaneous life feels. Planning replaces impulse. Thought replaces assumption. That shift brings stability, but it also takes away some of the lightness that used to exist in everyday choices. Trust in people was easier when fear was not constantly amplified. Believing that most people would help in difficult moments created emotional security. Watching how fear and division can change behavior has made that belief more complicated. It does not mean people are bad. It means stress reveals sides of people that normal life often hides. Accepting that reality changes how freely trust is given. Preparedness reshapes relationships with time. Normal life rewards short-term thinking because systems absorb the consequences of neglect. Preparedness rewards long-term thinking because you feel the weight of future outcomes more clearly. That shift can make the present feel heavier, because you are no longer only living for today. You are building for uncertainty you may never see but still choose to respect. Old normal offered emotional insulation. Problems felt distant when solutions felt guaranteed. Insulation created comfort but also complacency. Losing it brings clarity along with discomfort. Seeing how fragile comfort can be changes how you value small things like clean water, stable power, and stocked shelves. Gratitude becomes sharper when ease is no longer assumed. Working toward a prepping lifestyle has created a quiet tension inside me. Part of me misses the ease of trusting systems completely. Part of me knows that trust was never as solid as it felt. Living in that tension is part of the transition. It is the space between innocence and resilience, between comfort and capability. Preparedness has not removed the desire for trust. Changed where I place it. Trust is no longer given blindly to systems. It is built slowly through skills, preparation, and relationships with people who value responsibility. That kind of trust feels heavier, but it also feels more honest. The part of normal life I miss most is the emotional rest that came with not having to think about fragility. That rest was real even if it was temporary. Letting go of it is part of growing into a more resilient mindset. The comfort of trust is something I still grieve, even as I build a life that does not depend on it alone. UP out.
Oh my goodness, Zach! So many great things. You're such a bright guy. There's a couple things I'd like to make out to that, though. Is, you talk about the illusion of trust, and although that's true, and I think society has declined generally, But I'm going to tell you something. In this journey, I've been at this now 33 years. I started prepping 33 years ago. And in this time, the first 20 years I was hiding in the closet prepping, I was the closet prepper. Um, but over time, I can tell you this too, Zach. I have met some of the most absolutely fascinating, trustworthy people out there. I have so many people in my life that will drop everything they have to go help some stranger that they don't even know. And so, although I do agree with you that trust has eroded in a lot of places, it's grown in some places too. It's grown to know that there are still these great freaking warriors, Zach, just like you. There's these warriors out there willing to put it on the line, to do what's right. The other thing I wanted to point out is that there's a sense of calm that comes over you. I think once you've kind of become totally awake to all of it, and you began to take away your need to ask permission from these systems, right? So as soon as I got off grid from an electric perspective, man, no more electric bill. That was great, right? I don't have to worry about that one no more. And then water, and then the next one, and then the next one, and the next one. And so I have to tell you, but I go to sleep with great comfort every single night to know I have no mortgage, no car payment, no electric bill, no water bill, no sewer bill. You know, but in fairness, that's 33 years of work, that it's taken us to get there. And so another point I wanted to make to you and what you said too is that you're a long ways, Zach, for where you began. Never compare ever. Are you further? Race yourself every single day. That's what I do, right? Just race myself. Am I better today than I was yesterday? Am I better tomorrow than I was, today? And if we do that, I think we're going to make it a long, long ways together. And ultimately, community, I think, helps with a lot of that too. And as far as politics go, guys, I'd love to point this out. I get accused in my posts and stuff all the time about being a Democrat. I get accused of being a Republican. I get accused of being a socialist. I get accused of being all of them. I get accused of all of them. So I have broken down, and I have finally joined a political party. I'm part of the Republicratarian Anarchagorists. So that's my new party, and we need to get away from parties, and we need to become one people. And I think if we do that, a lot of this gets a lot better. Tag out.
Question number 3. How do you reconcile the prepper emphasis on self-reliance with the human need for community and connection? Does true preparedness require isolation, or can it, and should it, strengthen relationships?
Yeah, this is a great question. How do I reconcile prepper emphasis on self-reliance with the human need for community? You can't be self-reliance without community. There's nothing to reconcile. I mean, I'm going to tell you guys, and I've been at this a long. I'll tell you a funny story. Do you know when I first we first started prepping, the very first thing I bought was a couple cans of Vienna sausages. Those little cans as sausages, and it was so funny. I look back at that like I was such an idiot. Like there were so many better things to be buying, but you start where you start. You go through and eventually you end up with a big pantry full of supplies, and you've studied every manual, and you think you got all these skills and all of those things. And eventually someday you come to this realization that those supplies are going to run out. You come to the realization, that you can't possibly know all of the skills. And then furthermore, we're social creatures. And so could you imagine trying to survive out the end of the world as we know it by yourself in a little cabin somewhere? I don't want to live like that. And so how do I reconcile it? I mean, I don't. I mean, you can't be prepared without community. It's the natural evolution that goes from prepping to homesteading to freesteading, right? And as it kind of goes through that. And I think the further that we travel down the rabbit hole of the world today, right? Why are we getting ready to attack Iran, the Epstein files, the whatever the 9 million things that are out there to focus in on. But I think the further you go down it, the more apparent it becomes that community might be the single most important prep. So in short, Zach, to answer your question, I don't reconcile it. Tag out.
Self-reliance does not have to mean standing alone. The idea that preparedness requires isolation comes from a misunderstanding of what real resilience looks like. No person survives long without connection, shared effort, and emotional support. Self-reliance simply means developing the ability to contribute instead of only depending on others.
Mhm.
Community becomes stronger when individuals bring skills, awareness, and responsibility into shared spaces. Preparedness rooted in isolation creates fragility disguised as strength. A person can store supplies and learn skills, yet still become emotionally brittle without relationships. Human beings regulate stress through connection. Support systems reduce panic, improve decision-making, and help people endure hardship with clarity instead of fear. Preparedness that ignores emotional health leaves a dangerous gap in real-world resilience. Strengthening relationships through preparedness changes the meaning of community. Skills shared become safety multiplied. Food grown and preserved together builds trust. Discussed openly reduce confusion during crisis. Mutual accountability creates reliability. Preparedness becomes less about hiding resources and more about building stability through cooperation. Strong relationships transform individual readiness into collective resilience. Isolation may look like protection on the surface. Isolation often creates blind spots in planning, emotional burnout, and unrealistic expectations of personal capacity. No one can cover every skill set alone. Medical needs, physical limitations, emotional strain, and resource scarcity reveal the limits of solo survival. Community fills those gaps through diversity of ability and shared responsibility. Living with cerebral palsy taught me how damaging isolation can be to mental health. Being separated from community creates loneliness that erodes confidence and emotional stability. Human connection provides grounding, validation, and perspective. Survival is not only physical endurance. Resilience determines how long someone can stay clear-minded under pressure. Isolation weakens that resilience over time. Preparedness offers a pathway out of isolation when practiced with intention. Sharing knowledge creates belonging. Learning skills alongside others builds trust. Working toward common goals strengthens bonds that carry emotional weight during difficult moments. Community-centered preparedness becomes a form of emotional safety as much as physical readiness. Self-reliance grows stronger inside supportive relationships. Knowing you can contribute meaningfully builds confidence. Sharing skills or resources creates purpose. Being relied upon strengthens identity. Preparedness done in community creates mutual respect rather than dependency. Each person becomes more capable while also more connected. Human connection improves adaptability. Different perspectives identify blind spots in planning. Different skill sets create redundancy in survival strategies. Emotional diversity helps stabilize group morale. Preparedness becomes dynamic rather than rigid when shaped by multiple minds. Groups that communicate openly respond better to change than individuals acting alone. Preparedness strengthens relationships by creating shared responsibility. People who plan together invest in each other's well-being. That investment builds loyalty that cannot be manufactured in crisis. Trust formed during calm moments carries weight during hardship. Preparedness done together turns neighbors into allies rather than strangers. Isolation reinforces fear-based thinking. Fear narrows perception and encourages defensive behavior. Community creates balance by introducing empathy and perspective. People grounded in connection are less likely to act out of panic. Preparedness rooted in cooperation encourages thoughtful response rather than reactive survivalism. Mental health remains central to real preparedness. Emotional regulation determines how well people manage stress, scarcity, and uncertainty. Supportive relationships buffer psychological strain. Shared laughter, shared work, shared goals create emotional resilience that stored supplies alone cannot provide. Preparedness without emotional health is incomplete. Preparedness can repair broken trust between people. Working together toward practical goals rebuilds faith in human cooperation. Shared labor creates mutual respect across differences. Relationships built on action feel more durable than relationships built on ideology. Preparedness becomes a bridge across division rather than a retreat from it. Living with cerebral palsy sharpened my awareness of interdependence. Strength comes from recognizing where support improves quality of life without erasing personal agency. Community support does not weaken self-reliance. It strengthens it by allowing energy to be focused where it matters most. Action becomes a force multiplier for resilience. Preparedness creates belonging when it centers people instead of fear. People thrive when they feel seen, valued, and useful. Skills become tools for service rather than symbols of separation. Community-centered preparedness nurtures dignity and mutual respect. That environment strengthens emotional stability during uncertain times. True preparedness strengthens relationships because survival without meaning becomes hollow. Life is not only about enduring hardship. Life is about preserving humanity through hardship. Community keeps preparedness grounded in compassion. Connection turns readiness into resilience that sustains both body and spirit. UP out.
Yeah, goodness, lots in there. A couple of really quick comments, Zach, I have for you, on that. I think asking the question, why do we prep, is such an important question. Because, most people would say, oh, I think that there's a depression coming or whatever, which I don't pay any attention to any of those things anymore. But I think the real reason why we prep is so we can have a great life, right? I mean, and you do it so you can live well. And how in the world are you ever going to live well alone? How boring would that be? I would really get tired of looking at myself. I would really get tired of, could you imagine if the only communication you had is talking to yourself while you brush your teeth in the mirror every day? I mean, that would pretty much suck. And I think also finally community, you want to talk about prepping for all of those, different bad things that could potentially happen. Community is the biggest safety mechanism you have. There's not a bigger one. You cannot, and this coming from a combat soldier, you cannot be on watch 24 hours a day. You cannot grow enough food 24 hours a day. You cannot, I'm telling you, you cannot. I live it. I live it every day. So community is the ultimate safety prep. Tag out.
Question number 4. If society suddenly returned to normal, with no major disruptions for the next 10 to 20 years, would you regret the time, money, and energy you've invested in prepping, and why or why not?
Yeah, no, not at all would I regret it. And I give you lots of reasons why. First of all, because of my beliefs, because of those flags, from Jim Carrey asking for a sign going down the road, from all of those things, I've managed to put myself in a position to be debt free. I own my home, I own my land, I own my things. We have our own water sources, our own food sources, our own everything. So even if the world was this perfect bliss of utopia, which by the way is not possible, even if it was, I would still be in a position where I was eating great food. I would still be in a position to where I was producing all of my own everything, still be in a position where I didn't have to have a lot of money because we did it all for ourselves. So from that perspective, I wouldn't at all. From the perspective of community, all of this time and energy spent building community and these kind of things also gives purpose. I'm so driven behind the things that we do today from a political outreach perspective or for a community perspective that, that purpose has been a big driving force in my life. I'd never want to go back. To go back to what? The rat race? Go back to a place where I work, 80 hours a week for 40 years. So at the end of that, they can give me a gold watch and tell me to piss off. So I could go die in some nursing home somewhere. No, I don't regret it in any way, Zach. I'm never going back, buddy. You can't drag me back.
Would not regret the time, money, and energy invested in prepping even if society returned to a smooth, normal, for the next 10 to 20 years. The value of preparedness is not limited to crisis scenarios. The habits built through prepping improve everyday life in ways that remain useful regardless of disruptions. Organization, planning, and resource management strengthen stability in calm times just as much as in chaotic ones. Prepping develops practical skills that translate directly into daily resilience. Cooking from stored food, budgeting for supplies, rotating inventory, and maintaining equipment improves self-sufficiency that lowers long-term stress. These skills reduce waste, save money over time, and create systems that make life run more smoothly. Preparedness becomes a lifestyle upgrade rather than an emergency-only investment. Financial discipline grows through preparedness. Planning purchases, avoiding impulse buying, and building reserves create healthier money habits. Supplies purchased thoughtfully often prevent last-minute spending during shortages or price spikes. Money spent on preparedness replaces wasteful spending on convenience and short-term comfort. The long-term return appears in reduced stress and greater financial stability. Preparedness builds mental resilience even in calm periods. Knowing that basic needs are covered creates psychological safety. Stress decreases when uncertainty is planned for. Peace of mind has value independent of whether a disaster happens. That emotional stability improves decision-making, relationships, and overall quality of life. Preparedness strengthens health through awareness and routine. Food storage encourages nutrition planning. Water management builds hydration awareness. First aid knowledge increases safety in everyday accidents. Fitness improves when physical readiness becomes part of daily life. Health improvements remain valuable whether society remains stable or faces disruption. Preparedness creates structure in daily living. Systems for storage, rotation, maintenance, and planning reduce chaos at home. Organized environments reduce cognitive load. Less clutter means fewer daily frustrations. These benefits compound over years of consistent habits, creating a calmer living space regardless of external stability. Preparedness supports independence without rejecting community. The ability to meet basic needs reduces pressure on others and systems. Being less dependent increases personal dignity and confidence. Independence also improves the ability to help others when small emergencies arise. Everyday readiness strengthens relationships by reducing stress and panic during minor disruptions. Preparedness builds problem-solving habits. Learning to plan, anticipate needs, and adapt to constraints improves flexibility in work, relationships, and personal goals. The mindset of thinking ahead transfers to career planning, time management, and personal growth. That mental training remains valuable in any social environment. Preparedness teaches patience and consistency. Rotating supplies, maintaining tools, and practicing skills build discipline over time. Discipline strengthens follow-through in other areas of life. Small consistent actions build trust in one's own reliability. That trust improves confidence in handling challenges beyond emergencies. Preparedness encourages gratitude for stability. Knowing how fragile systems can be deepens appreciation when things work well. Gratitude improves emotional health and reduces entitlement. Appreciating stability makes calm periods feel richer instead of boring. Awareness turns ordinary comfort into something consciously valued. Preparedness fosters community contribution. Skills and resources can support neighbors, family, and friends during everyday hardships like job loss, illness, or local outages. Helping others builds meaningful relationships. Community resilience grows when individuals are capable and generous. Those social benefits exist regardless of large-scale disruptions. Preparedness reduces fear-driven consumption. Intentional planning replaces impulse spending. That shift improves environmental impact by reducing waste. What is stored teaches respect for resources. Sustainable habits formed through prepping improve long-term quality of life even in stable societies. Preparedness strengthens identity through responsibility. Choosing to care for future needs builds self-respect. Living intentionally creates a sense of agency. Agency improves emotional well-being. Feeling capable reduces helplessness in everyday stressors. Identity shaped by responsibility remains valuable regardless of circumstances. Preparedness is not wasted effort when nothing goes wrong. Preparedness is practice in living well. Time, money, and energy invested become tools for stability, confidence, and contribution. The absence of crisis does not erase the value of becoming a more capable, resilient, and grounded person. UP out.
Yeah, goodness. It's been fun, Zach, to watch you grow through all of this over all that time. You're a really smart guy, and you really get it. It's really good. Couple things. My beliefs that have taken us down this journey have done a lot of things, but I think some of the big ones were it got me out of the system. And I'm no longer spending all of my energy making everybody else a whole bunch of money. Instead, I'm spending all my energy building the life that I feel purpose driven. And, so regardless of what's going on in the world, it helped me be accountable. I'm more accountable today than I've ever been because I'm responsible for all of it. I'm responsible that the water runs. I'm responsible for food. I'm responsible for shelter. I'm responsible for power. I'm responsible for all of it. And so I think that level of accountability would serve us well in both good times and bad.
Question number 5. What does a truly prepared life look like to you beyond stockpiles and skills? How has adopting this lifestyle changed your definition of success, happiness, or meaning in an unpredictable world?
Oh my goodness, a lot there too. You guys, great questions. Well, I think first of all, a truly prepared life, I think, is different for a lot of people. When I started Zach prepping, again, it was, stacking stuff to the ceiling, and it was, buying a bunch of guns, and it was, hiding basically. But the more and more I learned and the more I studied, the more I realized how short-sighted that was. And, so we started, growing a little bit of food. And then that food turned into a big old farm. That farm turned into 300 animals that are out there every single day. And so for me, prepping, I'm not at a place in my life where, I go and stockpile shelves and all of that. I don't store my food in a pantry anymore. I store it in the hoof. I don't store my energy in a battery. I store my energy in the sun and in a tree. I don't store my water in jugs in a basement. I store my water in a well, in a rainwater catchment system, or in a pond. And so, you ask about what does truly prepared look like. I think it's getting to this place where you're no longer asking permission for anything. I really do. I think it's when you get to a place where the system really can operate around you. You notice them because you got to pay taxes, and you notice it because of those things. But beyond that, it really doesn't have a lot of effect on you. So how has it changed my definition of success? Well, there's so much to this. I think the biggest one is, I've spent almost every single day of the last 10 years with my wife. And what used to be where she'd see me on Saturday and Sunday because I was a corporate guy and I was working all the time, now we spend all of our time together. And so I get to spend, lots of time with my very best friend in the whole world. And so that relationship has grown. My relationship, with my kids have grown. That purpose, I think, equals happiness. It's crazy when you think about happy. If you asked me this 25 years ago or 30 years ago, I would have told you happy was climbing the corporate ladder. When today, happiness is coming home at peace. Happiness is sitting out on my back deck with a cup of coffee and watching the deer stroll across the back of my property, So I think, that changes a lot. I also think that, you can't be prepared with just stockpiles and skills alone. It's just not enough. And you got to start thinking really long term, because what happens when those supplies run out, right? What happens when you get into a spot where you need something and you don't possess that particular skill, which again goes all the way back to fully prepared as having a fully functioning community. So when you talk about what does a fully prepared life look like, it 100% revolves around a community of people who've come together on some shared focus of freedom, liberty, and preparedness, self-sufficiency, and sovereignty. And I think if you do that, I think you're going to be so much further ahead than those people with those, big pantries and all of those things. The other thing is that, in your question you asked, how has it changed my definition and meaning in an unpredictable world? Well, the fact is, if you do the things that we talk about, you stop asking permission, you do for yourself, and you take accountability, it's no longer unpredictable. a big ice storm can come through tonight and knock power out for my whole region. I'm not going to lose power. Right? They can get a big, something goes wrong with the water system and everyone goes on a boil alert. That don't affect me. Right? If the supermarket's shut down, that's okay. I'll go butcher an animal. We'll go harvest some lettuce or some potatoes and we're going to do just fine. And so I think getting through this unpredictable world is take accountability and make it not unpredictable anymore. My life is fully predictable. Tag out.
Truly prepared life goes far beyond stockpiles and skills. Preparation shows up in how I think, how I manage stress, and how I move through uncertainty. Being prepared means creating stability inside myself as much as around me. It means building routines that support clarity, patience, and awareness. Eyes help in moments of need. Mindset shapes every moment in between. Living with cerebral palsy reshaped my understanding of preparedness early in life. Physical limits required planning, pacing, and problem-solving long before preparedness became a lifestyle choice. Navigating a world not built for my body demanded adaptability and patience. That experience trained resilience as a daily practice rather than a reaction to emergencies. Preparedness became a way to honor my energy. Managing fatigue, pain, and mobility requires realistic planning. Rest becomes a strategy. Nutrition becomes intentional. Physical care becomes part of readiness. Respecting limits creates sustainability. Ignoring limits creates burnout. A prepared life recognizes that sustainability matters more than intensity. Success now means designing a life that supports consistency instead of chasing extremes. Success looks like routines that protect health, mental clarity, and emotional balance. Productivity without sustainability no longer defines achievement. Reliability does. Showing up in small steady ways builds progress without sacrificing well-being. Happiness shifted from excitement to stability. Peace of mind replaced the chase for constant stimulation. Knowing that needs are covered creates emotional space for creativity, connection, and presence. Calm does not mean dullness. Calm creates room for joy to be noticed. Preparedness cultivates that calm through intentional living. Meaning deepened through responsibility. Caring for future needs became an expression of self-respect. Preparing for uncertainty became a way of valuing life rather than fearing loss. Responsibility transformed from burden into purpose. It's anchored daily choices in something larger than comfort. Preparedness reframed independence. Independence became the ability to participate fully rather than perform alone. Support systems became part of readiness. Accepting help when needed became a strength rather than a weakness. True preparedness includes knowing when to rely on others without surrendering agency. Preparedness improved emotional regulation. Anticipating challenges reduces panic. Practicing skills builds confidence. Confidence stabilizes reactions under stress. Emotional steadiness became a form of readiness as real as any stored supply. Calm responses preserve energy that crisis would otherwise drain. Preparedness reshaped time. Planning ahead reduced urgency-driven living. Deadlines became manageable instead of overwhelming. Energy pacing created sustainable momentum. Time felt less like pressure and more like structure that supports intention. Prepared living slowed life enough to notice meaning in small moments. Preparedness strengthened self-trust. Following through on small plans builds confidence in decision-making. Consistency proves reliability to the self. Trust reduces anxiety about future uncertainty. Believing in personal capability becomes a powerful stabilizer during unpredictable conditions. Preparedness deepened gratitude. Awareness of fragility sharpened appreciation for stability. Clean water, quiet moments, accessible spaces, supportive people became visible blessings instead of invisible assumptions. Gratitude became a daily practice rooted in reality rather than idealism. Preparedness refined priorities. Energy goes toward what sustains life and connection. Distractions lost authority. Comparison lost meaning. Values clarified around health, contribution, and presence. Living prepared simplified choices by aligning actions with long-term well-being. Preparedness strengthened relationships through honesty about limits. Communicating needs builds trust. Respecting capacity prevents resentment. Boundaries protect energy for meaningful connection. Relationships grounded in realism create safety for vulnerability and mutual support. Preparedness reshaped purpose around contribution. Sharing knowledge, encouragement, and perspective became part of readiness. Helping others prepare emotionally and practically creates shared resilience. Contribution adds meaning beyond personal security. A truly prepared life looks like living with awareness, compassion for limits, and commitment to sustainability. Success means stability. Happiness means peace of mind. Meaning means responsibility guided by care for self and others in a world that remains unpredictable. UP out.
Yeah, goodness. Again, a lot there too. I think, as you go through this life, it makes you super fit. I'm fitter than I've been. And, there's very few young 20-year-old whippersnappers that come out here to my farm and outwork me. And, so I think it makes you tough physically. I think it makes you tough mentally. But preparedness, guys, I think what I'd tell everybody is just, turn the circus off and build a life that's great for you. Find community, because that community, I'm telling you, is with it, everything's possible. And without it, there's a lot that isn't. So tag out from that front.
Final words for tonight?
Yeah, goodness. I could build off, kind of what I said before is, at the end of the day, if you ask a general how many fronts he wants to fight a battle on, he'll tell you one, because every front splits your supply lines. Every front is, dividing of your forces. If you can eliminate the permissions we have to ask, if you can eliminate all of those things, do more and more and more for yourself, there's less ways for you to be impacted by the crazy stuff going on, globally and, and even in our country. I was a prepper first. I don't consider myself a prepper anymore. I consider myself a freesteader, but I began as a prepper. And through that natural, kind of evolution, you start to figure out that it's just not enough. And so I would really, really, really encourage, all of you guys, go out there, identify the fronts you have to ask permission for, and then attack those fronts and get those fronts under control. Because you know what? If you do that, you're going to be all right. That's all I got, Zach.
Thank you, Tag, for joining me tonight and sharing your time, your perspectives, and your hearts with this community. Your presence brings real value to these conversations, and the way you both show up with honesty and lived experience strengthens what we are building here. Brothers who are willing to speak openly about preparedness, resilience, and real-life struggles makes this space feel grounded and authentic. This community continues to grow because of the people who show up, listen, engage, and support one another. Every comment, every shared story, every thoughtful disagreement adds depth to the conversation. The strength of this space comes from people choosing respect over division and learning over ego. That kind of culture does not happen by accident. It is built by consistent care and intention. I want to thank everyone who has supported the fundraiser to renew my talking software so I can continue creating content and connecting with you all. The support so far means more than I can properly express. The fundraiser only need $135 more and my software renews next Tuesday. The ability to communicate clearly with this community matters deeply to me, and every bit of help moves us closer to keeping these conversations going strong. If you are able and willing to contribute, my donation links are in the description. Every share helps just as much as every dollar, because visibility brings opportunity for support. This is a community effort, and I am grateful for everyone who shows up in any way they can. Your presence here is already meaningful. Space exists to break division, challenge stereotypes, and build resilience together. Preparedness is not just about supplies, it is about people choosing to care about their future and the well-being of others. Conversations like these create a culture of responsibility without fear, strength without isolation, and awareness without panic. To find anything unique prepping, visit the Linktree link in the description. That is the central place to connect with all the content, platforms, and resources connected to this community. Staying connected across platforms helps keep this mission alive and growing beyond just one space. Like, subscribe, comment, and share to help this message reach people who may be searching for grounded preparedness without fear-based noise. Engagement helps this community grow in healthy ways and brings more voices into meaningful conversation. Every interaction helps push this space forward. Support allows this channel to remain focused on unity, responsibility, and practical resilience. Community stands for building people up instead of tearing each other down. That intention matters, especially in times when division is louder than understanding. Choosing connection here is an act of resistance against that noise. The heart of preparedness is love for people, love for life, and respect for the reality that tomorrow is not guaranteed. Choosing to prepare is choosing to care about yourself and those around you. That care shows up in small consistent actions that shape a more resilient future. Love you all, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Psalm 23 verse 1 KJV. Stay prepared, stay unique, and God bless.
You woke up to a world that said stay in line. Your dreams too big, heart's too wild, you'll be fine. But you've got fire burning deep inside. Don't let the fear rewrite your life. Every step you take, you're breaking through. Even when the voices inside shadow you, don't forget what you were made to do. The world's waiting on the light inside of you. Like, comment, share and subscribe. We're in this together. Prepare for the ride. Don't give up on your journey. Don't you let go of that flame. Your passion's got power, your dreams got a name. You're closer than you ever knew. If you need prep and can do it, you can too. They say you're dreaming way too loud, but you were never meant to blend in with the crowd. You've got a voice, so let it rise. You're not alone, we're on your side. You're the only you this world will see, so shine like only you can be. Don't trade your truth for their routine. Keep going, chase that daring Don't give up on your journey. You got a spark, let it fly. Your story's unfolding, reaching the sky. Just hold on, you'll break through. If unique prepping can do it, you can too. Yeah.